Yo, what is up, you guys? So today we are talking about dual blade, and I am going to just explain all of the basics of the class. This is going to be like an intro, and it's going to be really quick. I'm not going to make it like super in-depth, but I'm just going to go over like the main points of it. So let's just get right into it. So we're going to start with the boost nodes. This is for people who are probably just trying to main the class, or not main the class, but they're just trying to get into the class and they're like, what the hell am I doing? So I'm going to go ahead and put up the nodes, the V matrix nodes on the screen, the perfect boost nodes, if you will. We call it perfect trio. You've probably heard of perfect trio, perfect V nodes, I don't know. A lot of classes will you have to max every single class, but for dual blade it's pretty simple. You want to max Blade Ascension, Blade Fury, Sudden Raid, Asura's Anger, Phantom Blow, and Blade Clone. For some reason I put Final Cut in mine. It's not good, don't do it. Do not follow what I did. But yeah, I put the correct ones on the screen, so just follow that. The reason why you want that is because Blade Ascension is a skill that you use to grind and to also position yourself during boss fighting, so you will find that it is extremely useful. Blade Fury is because it is the strongest mobbing skill that dual blade has. It is not a great hitbox, but it does the job. Asura's Anger is just your secondary burst skill if Blade Tempest is on cooldown, or I don't know why it's called Whirlwind now, but anyways, Blade Tempest is your main bossing burst skill, and then you have Asura's Anger when it's off cooldown, and then you obviously have your bread and butter off, cooldown skill, which is Phantom Blow. Phantom Blow is your main DPS. Besides Blades of Destiny and Blade Tornado, you always want to spam that when that is off cooldown, of course, but when those are off cooldown, you want to use Phantom Blow, so that's why you boost Phantom Blow. And then you want Blade Clone because that is a buff for dual blade that gives you extra damage. And then you want Sudden Raid because Sudden Raid is a mobbing skill, and also you use it a lot. You use it immediately after Final Cuts because that reduces the cooldown of Final Cuts. So now that we have the boost nodes out of the way, let's go right into the inner abilities. So for dual blade, it's pretty simple. You either want 20% boss damage or you want 20% cooldown skip on your inner ability. The first line will always be legendary for anyone who is new to this. You always want that to be legendary, and the other two lines will have to be unique. You can get epic or rare, but you want it to be unique because that gives you the maximum value. But anyways, you want 20% cooldown skip ideally on dual blade because it increases your Final Cut uptime, because you can skip it. So it's a 3-second iframe. You always want that to be up during bossing, so you can ignore a lot of bullshit mechanics in bossing. It really does save your ass. And not only can you skip Final Cut, you can skip a number of skills that dual blade has, which is very useful. Your second iframe, which is Chains of Hell, this gives you a 1.5 second iframe, I think. Yeah, it says it gives you an iframe for the duration of the attack. I think, yeah, it literally says, I'm sorry, I'm blind. I'm deaf. I'm blind, whatever. Why did I say deaf? It's 1.5 seconds for the cooldown. So you want that to be skippable. So when you have 20% cooldown skip, you can literally skip Chains of Hell, you can skip Final Cut, and you can literally skip it like twice in a row if you get really lucky, if not 3 times in a row. So that, if that doesn't sound broken to you, I don't know what to say. You either want that, or you want, for me, I went the consistent damage route, which is 20% boss damage. So if you prefer like consistent damage, then that's fine. But what you can do to make up for that is just when you have 20% cooldown skip on the first line, you could roll a 10% boss damage on your unique line, because a unique value in inner ability can only go up to 10% boss damage. As with legendary, it's 20%, so that's just up to you. So your first line would obviously be boss damage or 20% cooldown skip, but you could opt for the other 2 lines, you could do critical rate if you lack critical rate, like me. Obviously, I don't have decent sharp eyes on, so when I have decent sharp eyes, I have 100% crit rate. I've done my calculations, so don't worry about me. But yeah, critical rate, if you're lacking that, having 100% crit rate is incredibly important. Some classes like dual blade have trouble reaching that threshold, so definitely use your crit rate on your inner ability, and then you want either crit rate. You can completely opt out for crit rate if you don't have it, if you are set with crit rate, or you could use 8% abnormal damage. You could even justify using like 21 attack unique, but that's honestly 21 attack is like whatever, you don't need that. You could do buff duration, and then you could do, so if you have boss damage on your first line, you could do 10% cooldown skip, but I would honestly prefer just doing 20% cooldown skip, because 20% cooldown skip procs way more than 10%. Let's be honest, like it literally will proc like twice as much. So that just don't even bother with 10% cooldown skip if you have. I tried it honestly, like I did 20% boss damage and I did 10% cooldown skip. It does not proc as much as you think it would, but yeah, definitely want that. Now we're going to get into more of the nuances of dual blade, because this is not necessarily an in-depth guide of dual blade, but I just want to go over the basics, the fundamentals of dual blade, since I have mained this class for honestly maybe like 5 years. This character is only like maybe 2 years old, 3 years old, but he is definitely not the first dual blade I've made. I've made many dual blades in the past, because I just fucking love this class. I'm very passionate about this class. So the thing about dual blade is that you do not want a 12-9-9, for example, or 13-10-10 potential hat with stat. You want to have skill cooldown, because once you get to 5th job, you'll notice that dual blade's main bread and butter skills is Blades of Destiny and Blade Tornado, and yes, these two skills are affected by cooldown resets. So, cooldown, skill cooldown, not cooldown resets. That's a completely different thing. But yeah, you definitely want to invest in, at least if you're like just dipping your toes in dual blade, just get a a -2 cooldown hat for dual blade, because that will go a long way in having the uptime of these reduced. Because you really just want to be spamming these skills during bossing, during mobbing. Honestly, these skills are great for mobbing, they're great for bossing. They are probably, I'll be honest with you, these skills make or break dual blade. So that's why you want cooldown, skill cooldown on your hat. If you can get like double lines of it on your main pod, then that's great. But it's obviously very hard to do that, especially in Reboot. You have to just go through so many of those black cubes and just pray to God that you roll that. And in Reboot, you don't have beatbots, so in Reg server, it's easier to just buy like a really nice hat like this, but yeah. Now, another question that I see frequently asked in the Dual Blade Discord is, should I use a Sweetwater Katara? Should I use an Arcane Umbra Katara? Which one is better? The answer is Sweetwater Katara is better, because it has a 30% boss damage and 10% IED line on it, just on the entire weapon, and that's just broken in itself. Yes, it has a lower base ratio of AD, or attack power, I'm playing too much League of Legends, I'm sorry, on the item, so it's going to have less attack at 22 stars, but that doesn't even, like, late game it doesn't matter. At late game you just want to be defeating bosses, you just want boss damage. Boss damage is the name of the game for Dual Blade, because after all, Dual Blade is a bossing class. Their specialty is bossing, that's why we have 2 freaking iframes, and we have pretty good burst. So I would say Sweetwater Katara for anyone who wants to play Dual Blade like long term. If you're casual, you could honestly do Arcane Umbra Katara. For me, in my case, the reason why I wear this is because a lot of people ask me this actually in game. They're like, why are you not wearing a Sweetwater Katara? What the fuck is wrong with you? They're like, yeah. But yeah, the reason why I wear this is because I'm broke, and Sweetwater Kataras in Bara are literally like 2 billion mesos, and I do not have that kind of money, so I'm just not going to invest in that. So yeah. Dual Blade is a pretty simple class. I'm not going to say it's like super complicated. I think anyone who mains Dual Blade can agree with me that it's not a complicated class. So I'm not going to go over the bossing rotations. You can just literally type in Dual Blade bossing video, like type in whatever boss you're struggling on, like type in Dual Blade Lucid, Dual Blade like H-Will, Dual Blade Black Mage. Watch a video of a Dual Blade. It's very simple. You literally press 2 buttons for your burst. Your Blade Tempest is your main burst, and then you have Asura's Anger off burst, and then you have Blades of Destiny, and then you have Blade Tornado. You literally are just spamming these skills, and then you're using Final Cut to give you that 40% final damage, and then immediately after Final Cut, you're going to use your Sudden Raid, and then before bursting, you're going to use Flashbang, because that gives you a little bit extra damage on bosses and stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty simple. I'm not going to go over that. To wrap up this video, I'm going to make it very short and concise. Shortcut, clean, and concise. I don't want it to be overbearingly long. I'm just gonna end the video with, should you main Dual Blade over Nightlord and Shadower? In my opinion, I love Dual Blade. It has a very unique aesthetic. Obviously, Nightlord and Shadower came out before Dual Blade. I remember being there for Dual Blade in 2010. It was very iconic. It was just kind of like the cool class of that time, and everyone wanted to main Dual Blade. And the reason why I love Dual Blade so much is because, well, first of all, you have 2 iframes. I mean, what more could you ask for? You have Dark Sight. You literally can ignore so many bossing mechanics for just being... Like, for someone like me, I just do not have hands. As they say in the community, if you don't have hands, you literally, cannot play the game. And, for me, it's I'm really bad at bossing mechanics. So I just literally will, ignore all of that with my Final Cut and my, what is it? What's the other skill? Chains of Hell. So I have 2 iframes, and I have Dark Sight, and I have... once I get liberated, I will have my Genesis iframe, which is a 10-second iframe where I can just burst and do whatever the fuck I want. So yeah, I just love ignoring boss mechanics because I do not care to learn too much about bosses. So I love Dual Blade because it is such a good class to main if you are bad at bossing. I'm just gonna say that. You can also get away with a lot of boss mechanics if you know the bossing mechanics. So the more you know about a boss, the more you will be unkillable. And especially with a 20% cooldown skip line, which I'm gonna reroll eventually. So yeah, just remember the best in slot in our ability is cooldown skip. 20% cooldown skip, write that down. Seriously, that is going to make you unkillable, especially when you get liberated and you get your Genesis iframe, which is a 10-second iframe and is on a relatively short cooldown. That is absolutely busted. I think a liberated Dual Blade can quite literally, with enough damage, solo anything they desire, as long as they don't get timed out. So that is why I would recommend Dual Blade over Nightlord, because Nightlord, I mean, I love Nightlord. I used to main Nightlord, I'm not gonna lie, because that was what was cool and hip back in the day. Nightlord is great, absolutely the strongest burst in-game, undisputed, but you do not have an iframe until you get liberated, so until you get that Genesis Claw, you're not going to be able to survive during bosses unless you get the turtle ring, which is Kerr ring? K-R-R ring? I don't know what it's called. But yeah, I fucking love Dual Blade. I'm not going to just sit here for 5 minutes and tell you why you should main Dual Blade. Main Dual Blade because it is fucking amazing. I love every single thing about Dual Blade. It is my ride or die class, I'm sorry. It is just that good. I love everything, the aesthetics, the playstyle. Honestly, the grinding is not great, but I'm so Stockholm syndromed into Dual Blade's grinding rotations that it's just it's fine. It's honestly not terrible. I love Dual Blade. Main Dual Blade. Goodbye.